أهلا وسهلا بالجميع. أهلين منار بعد طول انتظار بسبب انقطاعنا بسبب المؤتمر. حنبلش اليوم السيشن تبعنا مع منار. أهلا وسهلا.
Hi everyone. I want to start with saying happy Thanksgiving, and I'm really sorry for scheduling this session today, but it's the most available day for me. I didn't want to make it very early or very late for the sake of our friends overseas. So I really appreciate you taking time to join this session, and I hope it will be helpful. So today I'm going to talk about the liaison interpreting the expectation via reality. What do we expect when we get a job as a liaison interpreting, or what interpreters, or what do we expect the job to include if we hear about it? So the first thing I want to say, and I feel like most of my friends, 99% of my colleagues and friends are really proud of our job. I think it's the most exciting job in the world, only if we want it to be. A lot of us do it because we love languages and we want to make a difference, and we want to connect people together through communication. And it's really fascinating when you are able to do that. However, again, the expectation of the job are really different than the reality of the job. If we can keep our enthusiasm and we can keep our passion to the job after all the reality that we face, that's going to be great. And I just want to point out that everyone I worked with, everyone I met during these last 6 years of my official journey as a translator and interpreter had the same feeling. They just feel that it's the most exciting job, and they really want to learn more and do more and help others. So there is 3 types of interpreting I want to talk about today. Basically, they all interact in one way or another. So the community interpretation, according to the ISO definition, it's as we all know it. It's the bi-directional interpreting. That's when we are sitting between 1 or 2 people, or maybe a small group, that we are trying to change the language and translate from Arabic to English, from French to Arabic, and vice versa. And that's most in the community services, like doctor offices, courts. Sometimes it happens when we have witnesses, lawyers, services like hospitals, even hotels. A lot of businesses are using community interpreting. The educational interpreting, which is my specialty. So I am an educational interpreter and translator, and you can see that a lot of my examples may come from that field, but it will feed in liaison interpreting. So it is really changing right now. The educational interpretation services was not really known before. It is really growing. It's a huge branch of the industry of interpretation that's been treated as the lowest level of interpreting. So anyone in any educational setting speak the 2 languages can jump in and be interpreter, regardless of their knowledge or any other like skills they need to have. So the educational interpreting is really needed, is really growing right now, and it's been a big and a huge platform, but it's not given its right, like we say in Arabic. It wasn't given it, and it's not, but we are working on recognizing the educational interpreting sector to be among one of the highest, like community, like the simultaneous, the conferences, and all these stuff. Now the liaison interpreting, which is a core in educational setting and other community interpreting, right now we can see that it's in need because of the changes that the words have, like all these words, all these immigrants that's coming from one country to the other, just force us to have liaison interpreting in most of our facilities. Many companies, institutes, many businesses right now shifting from dealing with agencies and subcontracting and hiring outside interpreters to an in-house interpreter and having a liaison interpreting. Again, it's first because of the demand on that job, that they want people to be able to communicate all the time, 24 hours. And from the other side, and that's what we read in all the books, liaison interpreting is really needed to in businesses for communication, to make sure that the immigrants are blending in the community that they are coming into. And the other side, that's an in-house interpreter will know, and the business will know, is the money. It saves a lot of money when you have a liaison interpreter in your facility, inside your company, work for you as a full-time employee, versus when you hire someone and you subcontract someone. So saving money is one part of it, and having someone inside the facility all the time, and also being consistent with what you do, being consistent with the way you interpret or translate, with the vocab and terminology that you use. So you depend on one or two people more than having a lot of people in the field. So now the expectation. What do we expect when you are looking for a job and they're going to tell you, yeah, we are looking for liaison interpreter to work for us? So the first thing we expect, okay, when I'm going to go to a job, it's going to be a small gathering or one-on-one meeting. Well, it's not the case all the time. So sometimes you're going to have an attendee of 100 parents. Again, my examples are coming from the educational setting, but it applies for a lot of settings, a lot of different settings and locations and businesses. So sometimes you're going to have one parent, one teacher. Sometimes you have one parent or both parents and like 5 teachers. And sometimes you're going to have like 100 parents sitting in a meeting and you have to interpret for all of them. And you also have more than one speaker at the same time. So you have to rotate between speakers, and you are kind of doing a conference interpreting, but consecutively, not simultaneously. A speaker will pause after each complete thought to give the interpreter time to deliver the message. Well, again, that does not happen all the time. Sorry to be the person who break a bad news, but sometimes the discussion will go on and they will completely forget you are there. So you will be, okay, 2 people are talking. This person speaking English, I have to take notes. I have to deliver the message after he finished his thought, and out of nowhere, another person speaks the same language, will jump in and start giving comments and still talking. So more than one person might talk at the same time, and that make it very hard for us to like sit, comprehend the idea, transfer it to words, transfer it to ideas from English to Arabic, for example, and to words, and then deliver the message. Note taking and being able to swipe between both languages. Again, this is one of the hardest that I'm at least face, because in the gathering, in that small group, you might have people who speaks both languages, bilingual people, like we said, and they tend sometimes to use Arabic and English at the same time. So you are like, okay, calm down here. I'm a little bit confused. So I'm interpreting from English to Arabic so Ahmed can understand. And now I'm interpreting from Arabic to English so John can understand. But when Summer come in and she speak 2 languages and she start talking in both languages to everyone, that's really confused the interpreter. And it happened in reality. It doesn't happen only in educational system, but it happened to me once in a doctor office, and it happened to me in a community gathering where I have, okay, calm down, guys. I have to be rude sometimes, stop the meeting, stop whatever going on, and insist. English people, please speak English. Arabic people, please speak Arabic, even if you understand, because that's make my life easier, my job easier. I will be able to focus. I can take notes better. I can deliver the message better. And even if there's some misinterpretation in your speech, my code of conduct prevent me to correct you in your own language. At the same time, I have to convey the message correctly when I hear it. So there's a conflict here that put me in a bad position that put the people who are listening to me in misunderstanding or confusion. Okay, who's talking about what? So that's very important. When we sit in a meeting, explain to them, if this group A speaks English, please, even if you know Arabic, stick to English. Group B speaks Arabic, even if you know a little bit English or a lot. I'm here to do this. This is my job. This is my part. It's not your part. You focus on your information. I focus on delivering this information in the correct and most accurate way. The minimal level of background noise. That's something we are noticing more and more when we shifted to an online learning, to an online meetings like Zoom, like Google Meet. So the noises, if you are in a school setting, you can hear in the background, students at recess, the bell, the announcement, a lot of people coming in and out of the room of the teacher. So there's a lot of noises. We expect it to be minimum, like we are sitting in isolated place, very quiet, speaking and delivering very calmly. We don't need to raise our voice. Sometimes I have to stop a lot. I have to wait until an announcement is done. And if I'm not taking notes at that point, if the sentence or the idea is very small and I can get it without taking notes, by the time they finish, oh, okay, can you please repeat what you say? Sometimes the speaker himself or herself forget what they are saying. So we expect the background noise to be very minimum, but sometimes it's not. Culture awareness. I'm sorry, am I going too fast? Everyone is okay?
I think you're okay. No problem.
Okay. Good. Okay, thank you, Zainab. Culture awareness. We all agree that interpreter and translator need to know everything about the people that they are meeting with. The culture is very, very important, especially again in specific locations and settings like schools, hospitals is very important, doctor offices is very important. What to say, what not to say, the way you say it, the way you approach the family or the speaker or the listener is really important. However, that from our side and from our part only. At our end, we understand that cultural awareness is very important to our job, but that's not the case for everyone else in the room with us. They don't understand and realize that to be aware of the culture of the person and the people you are working with, make your work easy, make it easy for them to understand what you want to say because you deliver it in the right and correct way. Other than that, a lot of people doesn't understand that. Why should the interpreter talk about, for example, culture things? Like, let me give you an example. When I interpret during parents meeting, and we are talking, for example, about the sex education class, a lot of time I have to pick my words very carefully that this subject will be accepted by everyone of the audience that's attending. I need to know what words I say, what word I don't say. I need to know also what words I'm going to say that's going to give them the correct meaning without offending them, without making them feel uncomfortable, especially when there's males and females in the room and we're not. So these stuff that we can talk about in a Western culture very openly, we cannot talk about it in the Arabic culture, or maybe in the like some of the East culture, Far East countries, like Maldives, for example, or like some part of Russia. They don't accept these subjects to be talked about in public, and you use the correct scientific terminology for it. So the interpreter aware of that, but most of the time people who are attending with you doesn't, and they look at you, why didn't you say this word? Because if you want them to accept what I'm saying, I need to use the correct word that goes with their culture. I need to localize that for in order for them to accept it. Stick to the scheduled time. And I think Yasmin here can be a witness on how they can book you for an hour. hour and a half, and then your meeting can last for 5 and 6 hours. And mind you, in consecutive interpreting and community interpretation, we don't have two people. When you are an in-house interpreter, there is no two people, there's only you. So you have to stick with them all the time, whether it's humanly possible to interpret for over 70 minutes, which all the books say that consecutive interpreter, the maximum you can do a 70 minutes of continuous interpreting, or you have to stay for 4 hours. And again, put all of these stuff together. There's a large group. You're working over 70 minutes. There's a lot of noises around you. You can't even take notes properly. People speaking and discussing stuff regardless of you being there. They don't give you time. These are all the challenges that we have. Our expectation, and again, not all the time, it's in special cases and special settings, all our expectation will go. Nothing. We expect to do this, but that's not what we're facing. And that's why we try to find solutions. That's why we try to find ways to compromise all these negativities that we are facing and replace them with something better, with something with solution we are make us able to work to complete our assignments. The last one, the only interpreter present. You expect yourself when you go there to be either you and another colleague who is an interpreter, who know the job description, who has the skills, who can follow the steps there. Maybe you by yourself or someone else. But you will be surprised again. You will find other interpreters. Again, bilingual people think, oh, we can do this. Oh, we can jump in and speak whenever we want. Like sometimes, and people doesn't understand that too, interpreter doesn't say word by word. We are not translators. So we gather the idea, we just look at, okay, 1, 2, 3 was important. I have to say this and I have to make this clear. The other hashu that we say in Arabic, like, oh, your son is so sweetheart, he's smart, he's nice, I love working with him, he's cooperative, he blah, 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 blah. I can take 3 of these nice words that the teacher said and deliver to the parents. And then another teacher would jump, oh no, she said 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I do understand that, but I am interpreting, not translating. And I need to be the one who's doing my job, no one else. So no one else needs to step into our shoes and do our job. Other than that, there is no need to call me. There is no need for me to be there if you think you are able to do that. So this is one of the hardest part I face at my job. That's when you are in a meeting, a lot of people want to do your job. Now, the reality is right here. Again, these are examples from my work as an interpreter, a liaison in an educational field. That's what I am responsible to do. So I translate, I interpret, I train, I subtitle, I subcontract. I work, again, from 1 to 5 hours in a meeting. I have to know a lot of dialects because my audience could be from 20 different countries. So I need to make sure that I try to use modern Arabic. That's for the sake of Brahim. I know what he's going to say, the simple modern Arabic, standard modern Arabic. But also a lot of people doesn't understand this. So they don't know the Fusha, they don't know standard Arabic. And I try to use different terms in different dialects to deliver the message. I have to be sometimes a culture advocate. So group A understand that I have to say this for group B to accept or to understand what you are saying. So it may or may not involve note taking. So sometimes I cannot take notes. I will be sitting there listening to all of these people talking, trying to imagine the scenario and the story in my head. And then, because if I start taking notes, I'm not going to know what note goes to who said what, and what's this simple for, and what's this abbreviation for. So most of the time I depend on my memory, and thank God, alhamdulillah, until now I still have good memory. to deliver the message and to do the job. Sometimes I will be used to fill paperwork with parents who doesn't speak English. I have to sit with them, ask them the question. They don't know how to read, they don't know how to write, and we cannot accept an Arabic filled enrollment packet, for example. So I have to sit and do that. And I'm sure that a lot of liaison interpreter in different locations and different businesses and places face the same thing. They have to do other responsibility. They wear many hats. It's not just in educational setting, but again, I'm using educational setting as an example for it. Now, we do it all. So we work virtually, Zoom, Google Meet, whatever. We go in person. We use phone calls. Every scenario you can imagine, we are there. We do consecutive. We do side translation. We do simultaneous and whispering. So all of these ways of delivering the message and the methods and types of interpretation we use. We have to be aware and we have to be skillful with all of these. If I have a meeting of 100 people, 90 of them speaks English and only one table, 10 people speak Arabic, I go with them, sit at the back and start simultaneously whisper interpretation for them. Sometimes they're gonna have for us, like let's say the code of conduct of the schools or a PowerPoint said, and the speaker is gonna read word by word from the presentation, from the PowerPoint. And I look at them and then we don't have time. They're gonna look at me and Manar, we have only an hour. Yeah, but your presentation at least need an hour and a half with me in it, with my services. So what we do is, okay, are you reading? They're going to tell you, Manar, you can read it. You can look at the IEP and just read the goals, read the services. So I look and I do side translation because that saves time that we don't have, because our schedule is booked from 1 to 2, from 2:15 to 3. So side translation is really, this is a skill really, really needed for a liaison interpreter. Consecutive, it's the norm. That's what we're supposed to do, and that's what we expect. But again, not everything we expect is there. We are expected to be skillful in all these ways of interpreting. Specialist knowledge. Again, another unrealistic thing for most of the people who work in interpreting and translation industry, but we do it all. We are all in one. We are medical, we are legal, educational, business, scientific, literature, everything you can think about, you have to be aware of it. In a special educational meeting, you have to be a legal interpreter and medical interpreter and educational interpreter at the same time, because you're going to use, there's some terminology about the eligibility, about the what's the students have, about the services. There is legal paper the parents need to sign to give us consent, to give us okay us to bill their Medicaid, and we have to explain that in details for them. We give them a guard for the parents coming from the MDE, which is Michigan Department of Education, to show them their rights and their duties as parents of a special education person. You expected to know them all. And the best way to do that is to ask them to send you the paper ahead of time. Again, another expectation. We expect that to happen, but it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes they forget completely to send you the paper. Sometimes they send it the day of or an hour before. Sometimes they just surprise you. Oh, Manar, you did this many times, so you can do it. Yeah, I did this many times, but each case is different. So again, here the solution is to set our rules. At the beginning, when you start the job, you will let them know you have your rules written on a paper and tell them, you know what? I am interpreting from this language to this language, vice versa. Any other languages, it's a different scenario, different story. I need to have the materials at least 24 hours before the meeting. I need to know the full name of the student or the full name of my client. Surprisingly, sometimes they send me AS IEP from 1 to 2, and then another AS IEP from 3 to 4. Okay, it could be Asil Ahmed, and it could be Ali Sayed. How I'm gonna know who are these? How I'm gonna know when I go into the meeting and say, whose IAS is that meeting for? So there is a list of rules. What make you comfortable at work, you have to follow. You have to set it up. You have to share it with your employer. You have to share it with the people who requested your services in your facility to make sure that you are given everything and you are ready, because at the end, you will be blamed for any misunderstanding. That's a fact. People will come to you and say, oh, I'm sorry, people will go to your supervisor or whoever you are interpreting to and say, oh, but the interpreter did not say that. I did not understand this from the interpreter. They did not interpret it correctly. So that's really important for you to be aware of what you're going to say ahead of time, so you have that specialist knowledge. I cannot be knowledgeable about medical, legal, educational, business, and all the terminology in the world. At the end, yes, we are smart. And yes, our brain works differently than everyone else. But at the end, we are human beings and we need to be ready and prepared. So it's just whatever they're going to throw in your way, you have to take, because you are an in-house liaison. You work for them, but you have to take it under your condition. See what works for you might not work for other people, but what works for you need to work for them, for your client and for your employer at the same time. We need also to be aware of all of the followings: the settings. Where are you going to interpret? When are you going to interpret? Who are you going to interpret to? Their background. Are they coming all from the same culture? Do they all have the same level of education? Because the terminology that you're going to use is really important here. If I have a parent does not really speak, read, or write, they do not read and write Arabic in their own language, how you expect me to use a very formal, sophisticated words? I have to break down the term that I'm using, and I sometimes have to give them the meaning of the term or give them an example of the term to understand what I'm talking about. So knowing your attendees, knowing their level of education, their culture, everything about them, every small detail you know about them will be very helpful for you to finish your work. Know the topic, like we said. What am I going to interpret for? Is it an IEP? Is it a business meeting? Is it with our vendors because we have, for example, a new project coming and we need people to put offers? Is it for the budget issue? Is it for the community? Is it for the board members? So every topic you're going to discuss is really important for us to prepare, like any other job, the terminology, and be aware of it. And we said about background, custom, tradition, the culture, all of these need to be part of our list, that when we're going to send to the teachers or to our employer, okay, you need me in this meeting for 1, 2, 3, you need to let me know 1, 2, 3 and ahead of time. For me, myself, I do interpret and I do translate. For interpretation, sometimes I understand that it comes out of nowhere, an urgent meeting, and I have to be ready. But I always tell them at the beginning of the school year, translation need to be sent to me at least 5 to 4 days before. Interpretation, which you know when you're going to meet, you have a set schedule for your meeting and your event, I need it at least 7 days, especially if it's a language we do not serve in our schools and in our district. So I can subcontract with you. Set your expectations so you don't be surprised of what they expect from us. Now, the basic thing that I always face, and I always say that, and my colleagues who are attending right now can tell you, I'm always afraid of someone of my colleagues like Ibrahim or Shaima or Zainab attending one of my tasks, one of my jobs, because, okay, we should not add or omit any information. We should not correct the speaker. We should not give an opinion or give extra information. We should not do that. But unfortunately, when you are a district liaison or any other liaison, you find yourself facing these challenges and you find yourself fighting yourself to do it, but you do it anyway sometimes. Sometimes you have to make some addition, like we said, you have to give an example. You have to give an explanation for a term for them to understand. Sometimes you need to omit something that has nothing to do with the subject you are talking about. Parents may sit there in the meeting and vent about their problems with their kids for 20 minutes. And I understand, we really sympathize with them. We really feel for them. But if we're going to interpret every word the parents say every time and they are repeating the same sentence, the meeting will last for 3 hours instead of an hour. So sometimes we have to omit and in general tell the teachers, oh, the mom or the dad are repeating the same complaint about their challenges and what did they face with their children or their child earlier before we start the program. So I know ethically, I cannot do that. I have to interpret word by word. But again, being in the job, being there, really sometimes govern our actions and what we need to do. Again, this is not ethical. This is completely against the code of ethics of interpreters and translators. But this is the job and this is the reality. I don't want to lie to you and tell you I never added anything. I never omit anything. I never corrected the speaker because sometimes the principal will say something and I look the principal, oh, that was last week. We changed that last week. So I have to change it for the sake of me delivering the correct message to the parents or to whoever is sitting in the meeting. Sometimes they come to me and say, okay, what do you think? Do we agree on these services? Well, I can't tell you as an interpreter what to do. So this is the easiest part for me to escape from. I will tell them, you know what? Let's finish the meeting right now. Let me explain to you everything you need to do. You don't need to give us a consent right now. Here is my card. I am the district liaison, as you know. If you would like to discuss anything with me outside this meeting, I will be glad to help you. So now I wore another hat. I removed the interpreter hat and I put my other hat. But that's not the case all the time. There's something you need to do and you need to take a decision or you need to advise or you need to correct on the spot. If you waited, it's not going to be good for anyone. So again, the ethical challenges are the most important part of this job because we are trying to stick to the rules, stick to what ethical, stick to what we learn in school and what every other interpreter do. But again, we are different than other interpreters. We are an in-house interpreter. I've been working in my position for 6 years right now. So I know students since 2015. I'm working with their parents. It is expected by others for me to isolate myself from them, to separate myself as an interpreter, but it's not the reality. I'm trying, but I cannot accomplish that 100%. At the end, I become part of their daily life at school, and they become part of my daily assignments and my daily cases that I work with. Thank you so much. I know I speak very fast, so hopefully I didn't take much time, and we have plenty time for question if you have. Again, I'm so sorry for doing this during the Thanksgiving Day, and thank you for joining me. Any questions? The floor is open.
شكرا منار وشكرا لكل الحضور. وأنا هلأ حأطفي التسجيل مشان إذا في أي أسئلة حدا حابب يسأل يتفضل. ممكن تعملوا أنميوت أو ترفعوا إيدكم ونحن بنساعدكم.